And then I remember once at Nasty Anna, I was in the hotel room with them, and I said, Nasty Anna said, I won every championship except the such and such a championship. I can't remember what it was. And I said, why didn't you lose? Why did you lose that one? He goes, I don't know. Who cares? Let's just move on. And I thought, wow, that's
epic.
That's the mind you have to have.
Yeah. At least 10 years, right, since the last time I saw you?
At least.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in Malibu.
Malibu.
You were doing your stuff, and I was doing nothing, working out. But here's a question. Let's get back to the basics. We met, it's got to be 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, probably, I think I arrived in LA in 95, probably 98, 97.
Yeah, 97, 98.
97.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then you're the first person, I was doing martial arts, and we'll talk about that a lot today. I'd been doing martial arts at the dojo then for almost 8 years.
Uh-huh.
And had a big dojo, West LA, and all that stuff. Now, nobody in this country helped me get in a magazine. The very, very first story that I ever got published was because of you. So you came in. Now, how did we meet? Do you remember? Who was the guy from Black Belt Video?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't it him? Mm-hmm. We should insert that here on an edit because.
Yeah, but I don't remember who did Black Belt Video again.
I forgot his name. Really nice guy, and he did powerlifting as well,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I just don't remember. Well, anyway, so I think that's how we met.
That's how we met. But yeah, I think we got introduced that way. And then you were also very close to where I lived.
Okay.
And I was looking at dojos in the area.
Yeah.
And you were at this Sports
Club LA.
Sports Club LA.
Yeah.
Which is now
Equinox.
Yeah.
I started the martial arts program in 89.
89.
When I first got back from Switzerland.
Wow.
And you came over from England, right?
Yeah.
You were living in England full time then, but you'd been back and forth.
I've been competing in America for years.
Right.
But I decided to live here, and we came in 95, and then we stayed. We officially got our green cards in 97.
Okay.
And when I say we, my wife at the time.
Right.
And my children. Well, my son already had his passport.
He did?
He already had his passport, yeah.
Okay, is he American or is he British?
He's both.
Okay,
he's got
citizenship.
Yeah, everyone's got dual citizenship.
Nothing better than that.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And when did we're going to talk about your book.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is your second book you wrote.
Yeah.
And I read the first one, Warrior Within, is that still available?
It's still available, yeah.
Okay, so if you love martial arts, I mean, this is definitely the book to read because it tells some amazing stories of you and just of being a warrior. Mm-hmm. And I think, usually these podcasts are always about dogs things, but people are always interested in what makes me up, and what makes me up is martial arts and the people that I love. And you've always been not only a friend, but just somebody who I really admire because your drive and your dedication, and you're a world champion martial artist. I mean, you're the best of the best. And that's what I want to talk about today a lot, because that mindset, right, the warrior mindset, is what separates us from people who are lazy, right? People who don't, and I think it is a degree of laziness. I mean, there's a lot of luck. I mean, we got great opportunities. We're blessed in our lives and how we brought up. But how much of it do you think is luck, and how much of it do you think is hard work?
That's a great question. I think it's mostly hard work. I mean, and I don't know if there is luck in competition, because it's always about who has more desire and who is trained harder and who has a mental attitude. And that's why I wrote that book called The Warrior Within, because I remember I was fighting on the circuit, and I had already established myself as a champion, and I'd really gotten in an amazing position as being the number one fighter I think I'd already won my first world championship. So I was in a great strong place. And then one day I was at a competition, and one of the guys said to me, when's your book coming out? And I just immediately said, it's on its way. And then he said, great. And then I thought, why did I say that? I got to write a book now.
Right. What year was that?
That was probably about 84. 84, 85, 80, could be 85, 86.
Okay.
And yeah, 85, 86. And then I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to write a book, what am I going to write a book about? I mean, I could write technique, I could do kicks, I could do punches, I could do blocks, I could do fitness. And I thought, well, what's the main thing that's changed me and made me a champion? What's the one thing that is more important than anything? If I had to only have that one thing, what would it be? And I thought it's my mind, it's how I think, because it was my mind that changed everything.
Yeah.
I remember when I was fighting, I was always trained. I always trained hard. I always trained. You know how we're crazy, right? Martial artists. Yeah. We go out beating our heads with pieces of wood and punching walls and all this kind of crazy stuff. What's wrong with us?
Right.
So I would train like crazy. Yeah, and crazy training, just as you understand that. And then, but I'd always come like. I'd win sometimes, but then I'd lose, and then I'd come third, then I might get beaten in the first round, then I might be. And one day I just realized I was trying too hard. I was going like, man, you're just trying, you got everything. You're fitter than most, you're dedicated, you get up at 5 a.m., you run, you do all the things that, like, they're still sleeping, and you're already running down the streets, and you're only 14 and 15 and 16 years old. I'm thinking. And then one day, and it was the first ever, and this is in England, it was the first ever national event where they were for the first time bringing all the different styles together. And it was called the FSK, the Freestyle Karate Circuit, which was the equivalent of the American NASCA, North American Sports Karate Association. Right. So this was huge for England. So the timing was perfect, because on the very first event, and all of the best champions were there of England, all the greatest, all the people I used to read in magazines, looked up to, they were all there, they were all fighting, they were all... And then I said to myself, damn it, I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to go out and have a good time today. So I went out, and for the first time, I started smiling when I was fighting, and I started to relax, and then everything just came together, and I just beat everyone on that day so easily. And then that changed my career. Wow. It was from there, it was like a rocket launching.
That was 85.
That was 85, yeah, that was 85. It was actually the beginning, it was actually 84. And then for consecutively for years after that, I was maintaining. And I won my first world championship in 85. And that was all leading to that. But it was all about changing your mind.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Let's talk about changing your mind, because I think is it a decision? Is it an epiphany? Like, do you have to be open to it? You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of those.
You have to be open to it. You have to be open to it. Well, the thing is with fighters, we're so aggressive, and you know, that strength, and we have strong strength, right? And we go with all our strength and conviction in the fight. But that can actually work against you, because you're pushing so hard that you're restricting yourself in ways you don't realize. It's hard to see it. On the outside, it just looks like you got a great fighter with a big heart who's pushing and is strong and is ferocious. But on the inside, you could be restricting a lot of things. And then I used to follow Muhammad Ali, and I'd see how he'd always be joking when he'd be fighting these big monsters, these guys, and he'd be joking and laughing. So I started putting some of that in there, and it just freed me up. It just made me more. It made me, if I was already fast, I was 3 times faster, because I was laughing while I was doing it and smiling at guys.
And that happened in 84. That's when you had that transition, that epiphany.
Yeah.
And was Ali your motivation in that, because he was always stinging like a butterfly?
Ali was one of my huge inspirations. Yeah. But then I must tell you about Nasty Anderson. Well, he in 83, he was coming to England with the U.S. team to fight in the World Championships. So I wasn't yet fighting on the World Championship. I was in the squad. I hadn't quite crossed over. I was a little young for it, but I felt I was good enough. But they said, I agreed. I volunteered to be one of the guys to go and pick up the U.S. team. A couple of the U.S. team members. So I drive up there with my car, and I wind up getting Nasty Anderson in my car, and Tony Palmore, who was a heavyweight full contact champion, and Steve Anderson, of course, is a legend. So I've got these two guys in my car, and I'm 19 years old. And I'm driving, and they're talking, and they took me under. They're like, "Hey, you got to do this, kid. Have you heard of the blitz? Let me show you the blitz. Let me do this. This is a knee slide jab." So we pull over. They show me techniques, and they come on, kid, and they were like just loving me and showing me stuff. And then I remember once at Nasty Ann, I was in the hotel room with them, and I said, Nasty Ann said, "I won every championship except the such and such a championship. I can't remember what it was." And I said, "Why didn't you lose? Why did you lose that one?" He goes, "I don't know. Who cares? Let's just move on." And I thought, wow, that's
epic.
That's the mind you have to have.
Yeah.
So I combined that with that attitude of like, all that matters is winning.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Muhammad Ali in the background with his fun and games. And I was also, to add to that, which is kind of ironic because it's the same kind of guy that I was when I picked up Steve Anderson and Tony Palmore. A couple of years earlier, I was at a European Championship, and there was this one guy who picked us up, and I was in the car and I was fighting, and I think I got beat in the second round or something. And then I noticed that one of the competitors who were fighting was a guy that picked us up at the hotel, at the airport. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh man, let me tell you.
Tea.
I'm gonna have a cup of tea. Well, the bottom line is, this guy was fighting and he was fooling around with everyone. He was joking and he was playing, and I looked at him and think, man, how can you be so good if you're fooling around while you're fighting? And you picked us up at the airport, so you can't be that good if you picked us up from the airport. But he won the category, his division. I think it was a middleweight or something. And he was like amazing. He was kicking everyone's,
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? He's doing what Ali does. He's doing what I've been thinking of doing. This has got to be a magic key.
And that was your magic key, right? That was the thing that took you from teeter-tottering to straight. Is that when you got the Jedi?
Yeah. Well, I had the Jedi already.
You did?
Yeah. I mean, I was always a good competitor, very good competitor. And I was with, we were making a team, the Southeast Martial Arts team. So we had a few of the guys at my apartment in London. And we were making up names. So we had the Fall Guy, and we had the Hitman, and we had, different other guys. And I thought, what can I be? And I just seen Star Wars. I said, I'm going to be the Jedi.
That's funny.
The Jedi, yeah. So.
And that stuck.
It stuck, yeah.
All the way through.
It's kind of crazy though, because it's kind of funny because you choose names that you think are just names, but sometimes they're much more than that. I think that name chose me somehow. Yeah. Because when I think about what the Jedi is, and I think about my journey through my life at this point, that I can see that the philosophies of the Jedi. Let's talk about the philosophies of the Jedi.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So the Jedi, if you take a look at the storytelling, the Jedi comes from obviously George Lucas, who his work derives from Joseph Campbell, who talked about the mythologies and the different archetypes.
You never hear much about Joseph Campbell anymore. I read so much of his stuff. It's so epic, so amazing, right?
Yeah, amazing. So
were you into now that whole space travel thing?
What space travel exactly?
Well, I've got this thing, Jan, I'll tell you. I love watching at night anything that deals with the universe, the going between planets and going to a different. The universe being comprised of these galaxies and these solar systems. I'm mesmerized by our existence, our tiny existence on this tiny blue planet, right? In this tiny solar system, in this galaxy. I mean, it just keeps going, right? It's infinitesimal, right? I mean, are you into that?
I agree.
Oh yeah,
I'm into it big time.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's mind blowing, right?
It's mind blowing, yeah. There's so many things to look at. I mean, if you think, but I think this goes into a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
about humanity, becoming conscious of our existence, and you just said it perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, the more we learn, the more unconscious we become, and then humanity's, you know, growing to getting to different levels.
Let's talk about that in the martial arts. I think back when we were training, and I know the first class you took was a judo class, was it?
First class I did was Kung Fu.
Oh, Kung Fu,
Yeah.
that's right. You talked a lot about that in your book, which I want to talk about in a sec. But my first thing was a judo class, right? So, and I think we started in the martial arts kind of similarly.
Yeah.
And I really want to talk about that because I always say this. I see people now, kids, all hooked on video games, all, you know, complaining about being bullied, all, you know, I just don't see that fire.
Yeah.
Right? And when I got to this country, I got picked on. I got the crap beat out of me all the time. I got called a kraut, a Nazi, you know, I got called this, I got called that. When you were young and you were in England, I want you to talk about that. I want you to talk about, because that's so many points of your book.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's called These Are African Hands.
That's right.
Just the title is incredible to me. I want to talk about Africa too in this conversation. If we have time, it might be like a 6-hour conversation. But I want you to talk about where you were as a young boy and your evolution. Why martial arts and how it drove you, as opposed to your mom going into the school and saying nobody's allowed to pick on my son.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because it's so incredibly similar to what I went through.
Yeah.
And the opposite reasons, right? Talk about that, like when you noticed the color of your skin, and that kids are making fun of you, and that, because it just resonated with me.
You know, it's like that old story about the lion that or that different type of, let's say a cat grows up with a group of dogs, and they think they're all the same. That the cat thinks it's just the same as the dogs, right? And then later you find out that you're something else. So that was that for me. Yeah. The reason why because this is a huge subject. I'll start it by saying, when you're young, you don't know about racism, you don't know about color. And my grandparents, who were white, who raised me, we were all colorblind. And then when I became a teenager, that's when you begin to realize that you're different from everyone else. Whether it's the way people treat you, or maybe it's your own perception of yourself. And I think in my case, my own perception of how I perceived myself was harder to deal with than necessarily how people were treating me, because I did get a little bit of I did get some racism in Newcastle, where I grew up, but a lot of my struggles were self-perception and trying to find where my tribe was and how I fitted in and why I was different than everyone else. And it was a struggle. It was huge for me.
Were you insecure?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, totally. So you know how this goes. So if you know it because you've experienced it, for maybe if there anyone listening to this who hasn't, it's hard to explain. You just feel that, for me, that something is not in alignment, something's not connected right. And you just don't know what that is. And at the age of 12, 13, 14 years old, how do you fix those things?
Yeah,
you
how
know,
do you fix it? Yeah.
Who are you? How do you look at yourself? And you know, in my story, my grandparents raised me, as I said, and they were white, and I thought that my real mother was my sister. So when I was around 12 years old, my grandparents told me that we're not your real parents, we are your grandparents, and your sister is your mother. So that was pretty confusing for me. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was a lot of things to unpack. At the time, you think, oh, I can handle it. It's no problem. As long as I don't have to go and leave or give
Yeah.
up my room or go
Right.
live in a hole.
Right.
I was fine. I was fine with it.
Mhm.
But what happens is, subconsciously, things happen. You get anger, you get resentment, you get distrust, and those things play out in your life as you get older, as you live your life. So getting back to what you're saying,
Yeah.
martial arts was my way, my mirror of dealing with everything that I was dealing with emotionally.
Mm-hmm. You made a couple of really good points though when you started martial arts, and I think it's something that really, I didn't have a dad when I was growing up, right?
Yeah.
Like I knew I had a dad, but I never saw him, and so I just identified with this book on so many different levels. Was it the struggle, like, because you kind of went into this after you found out that your grandparents weren't your parents, and that, was it like this self-identity thing, like just trying to become, because my thing was, and I think you could identify with, I was a weak kid, I was an asthma-ridden kid, I was a nerd, I was a geeky kid, I was wearing German lederhosen and Birkenstocks and like white socks, right, and going to school, my mother sending me off to school like looking like a dork, and getting beat up. So it was hard, right? But I said, inside I thought, there's something more, right? There's something more. And I just tapped into this thing, but I didn't have a role model. I didn't have a dad. Like you had your grandfather who was your father, who was raised you as a child, as a son. I didn't have that. I had this uncle who was like a father to me. And I just thought, I need to be my own father. Right? Did that?
Wow. No, mine was different a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think maybe because I had my grandfather totally took the place for me, as I always thought he was my father. So that was, I had that. Man, you know what? Listen, I've just got to say, they gave me so much love. They saved my ass.
Your grandparents.
My grandparents.
Yeah.
I could tell when I look back that if I hadn't have had them, God knows where I'd be. They saved my ass.
Is your grandfather still around?
No, they both gone.
I'm so sorry.
But they just gave me so much love, and that's what has been my main navigation through all my issues. And they gave me a lot of it, and I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing. But at the same time, what makes it interesting is, at the same time, and they were doing the best they could at the time, but at the same time, they were holding a secret from me.
Did you resent that ever?
I didn't resent it, but I know it has caused some problems that I've had to learn about in my life and overcome. I don't feel like I've ever had any resentment or anger toward them, but I know that you're dealing with a trust situation. How to trust. So that has been one of the things I've had to learn about in my life. Trusting.
It comes through really well in the way you write about them. I mean, your love for your parents, we have to call them that, was really evident, because I didn't have that. I resented my mom for taking me away from my dad and not letting my dad see me when I wanted to see him. And there's a long, long history of stuff. And I think this book, your book, in searching for your father, is just so powerful. I want to get on it, but I want to talk more than martial arts. So you got into Kung Fu, and you had two instructors. You had one instructor who disappeared one day, right? Never came back, and then somebody else took over.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Which was really no. So that was your primary training there, and then you went into boxing, right?
Yeah.
So the interesting part, I think, was marrying those two, right? I mean, how do you know a lot of people have done that? Because I don't know that many who have.
I don't know either.
Right, and
not on the scale that I did.
Right.
Yeah.
But did you ever favor the martial arts? Well, they're both martial arts. Did you ever, favor Kung Fu over boxing?
I think I did eventually, because that was where I let go of the boxing and took it with me into the martial arts, into the Kung Fu, into the that part of the martial arts. So yeah, but I think what the boxing did for me, I had a choice actually.
Yeah.
When I was asked if I wanted to be a professional fighter when I was like 16, you know, and I was too young.
We should fight in boxer.
Yeah, boxer. And then, but I had a dream to go and live in London and carry on with kung fu and kickboxing and things like that. So that's when I made the choice.
Talk about that, the difference between, because I tried boxing.
Yeah.
I sucked at it. I couldn't do it. There's such a difference,
Yeah.
you know, in the various martial arts, but in this Western martial art of boxing compared to the Eastern martial art of kung fu or karate or whatever. Was it hard when you were boxing to the different posture, the different assault phases, the different foot movements, and not being able to use your feet? And
Yeah.
how did that work out for you?
It's interesting, but I just threw myself in the boxing and forgot about all the kung fu moves and just solely worked on the Western traditional boxing, and then it wasn't a problem. It was something I could switch back and forth to. It's like a hybrid, you know.
But there is a big difference, right? I mean, there's
huge difference.
huge. People don't see that.
Yeah.
And I remember, who was it? Was it Mayweather and Conor McGregor? Or
Yeah.
something? Was it those two?
Yeah.
Who fought? And I thought, like, if you're going into this ring with a boxer, like, that's insane,
Yeah.
right? To fight a boxer's fight in a boxing ring when you're not a boxer.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
I know.
Right? I mean, it's the boxer would never think about going the other way into a grappling match with somebody, right? I mean,
That's right.
but I do think there's something about the mental strength of a boxer. It's kind of different. Do you think that? I don't know much about boxing except for being a big fan of boxing, and again, a huge fan of Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson and these epic heavyweights.
Yeah.
And what is it about boxers that they just seem so tough, mentally and physically, just really tougher than martial artists? I hate to say that.
Well, I think it's a long lineage of punishing yourself in boxing gyms, and they go back for a way far back in the way they did with bare knuckle fighting, and they continue to pound each other going in the gym and the Queensberry rules. I mean, I think they have a different ethic. But then again, saying that, I say that and my mouth feels bitter, because I think if you're doing martial arts on the right level, on this, they meet in the same place.
Okay, you do.
I do think so. I think they meet in the same place. I think a lot of it, I think whether you're doing kumite karate, point fighting, or whether you're doing boxing, I think if you're at the highest level of those two types of sports, they meet in the same place with the amount of conviction. Yeah, definitely.
But there's just something about having watched Ali and having watched like Tyson's comebacks were just incredible.
Well, I think that is due to the fact, those guys are training for 15 rounds of endurance martial arts. It's not until recently we've got MMA come in where the Eastern martial arts has been combined over a longer period of time. But until then, a lot of it was being kumite, and of course there was kickboxing in the 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
That was great. Now let's talk about that. Do you have any idea why it kind of had such a great? There were scenes that had so much great potential.
What did?
Kickboxing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Kickboxing had so much potential, and it disappeared, and MMA came in.
MMA kicked its ass.
Yeah.
Remember all the cage matches, tough men competitions and stuff like that? I remember before I left Florida, coming out here in 80, 81, 82,
Yeah.
83, they had all the cage matches and all the fighting and stuff like that. It was just incredible. I think it didn't take off because the boxing commissions, I don't think the boxing commissions could make money on it. They couldn't sanction it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think that's what really bit UFC or MMA in the ass early on.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it would take off. I never thought they'd get it past the boxing commissions.
Neither did I.
It's just so powerful.
Yeah.
Right? I think Dana White did an amazing thing. I remember watching and I thought, it'll take a miracle to get, and I remember watching the first Hickson Gracie and Kenny Shamrock fight. And I was, and not Hickson Gracie, Hoist Gracie, sorry.
Yeah.
And Hickson had a school down the street from my dojo.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was back in the day, and I thought, and I remember that a bunch of other ones came about, right? A bunch of other organizations came out, UFC, and then all the other ones, and I mean, UFC just dominated it.
What year was that when Gracie? That was that 90s?
Yeah, I would say it had to be in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, 90s. I remember.
I mean, it's just so amazing to watch. I mean, I always thought that the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was amazing, and I thought it was really something that you and I never.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I knew a little bit about grappling, and we had some of it in the way I taught, but their style, right? I mean, the ideas, the principles, the toughness, the mental toughness, and I think that goes back to the root of the kumite or the boxing, right? Which that had a different level of toughness than the sport karate did, you know, and I think that's what I admired about you, because you had that toughness, you had the style of sport karate and the flair and all that, which was so admirable, but you really had that mental grit, right, where you would just take those hits and not give up, right? How much of that did you harness from your childhood, from your core, from your training versus who you are as a person?
The training is inspired. I mean, I unconsciously, I think I was definitely influenced by what I was going through as a teenager. I think that's what fuels all of us. In my condition, I was living in a place where, you know, there was a lot of love, but there was a lot of violence, and I was angry about that. And I wished I could have, you know, my grandmother would get beaten up from my grandfather. That was confusing to me. But I couldn't do anything. I'd seen that for many years when I was a kid, from the age of about, you know, when I was born. And so I think when I was fighting, unconsciously, I was using that unconscious need to protect my grandmother, and I was it was like a delayed reaction where I was able to do that in my tournament fighting. So I was putting it into rechanneling it, you know, the things I couldn't do as a kid, and so I was like championing her, and that was driving me unconsciously. It was only a few years ago when you realize these things. And then, of course, the other things, wanting to find my father, looking for my father. We all want to make our fathers feel proud of us, and we prove ourselves and our rites of passage. So I think that was unconscious. I know those things were driving me, but at the time you don't think so. You don't think of anything about that. We're unconscious.
So that's an interesting thing, and that's kind of what I got from reading your book. You were driven by the past and the future. Right, you were caught in that middle space, right? Fighting your demons from when you were a child to fighting to find your father and to get that connection, which is it's so important for a boy, right? To have that connection. I think it's something that I craved, and I think it's something every kid craves. I mean, you know, it's so. I know it's kind of personal, but can you talk about your relationship with your son because of your missing out with your dad? How did you catapult that and make that different with your son? Were you involved with him, or did you think, God, I'm going to be the best dad, I'm going to be right on with him the whole time?
I wasn't like that, but I was aware. I always ask myself, even right now, I'll ask myself, is there any part of that relationship of not knowing my father that's affecting me with mine? And I check myself now and again and have that conversation. I don't know I don't think it has affected us in a way. We've only had one fallout.
Oh.
Yeah, which was a few years ago. We didn't talk to each other for about almost a year.
I had the same thing with my dad. I lost him for a year.
Oh man.
It's the hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
But you can always make it up until they're gone.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
How old is your son now?
My son's about 30. I think he's 30 now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were in your 20s when you had him.
Yeah.
And you got great contact with him. He's here in the States?
He's in London.
Oh, he's in London.
Yeah.
Okay. As
He's
well as your
good.
daughter.
Yeah, they're both there. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you love having him there? You ever want to be closer?
I love that they're there together, you know. So if anything goes down, hopefully they'll. I like to think that hopefully they'll look after each other.
Yeah. Are they close?
They are, but you know, brothers and sisters sometimes, you know.
I think it's that age though, because they're both in their 30s, right? They're both.
Yeah. But she's in her 20s.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but I'm saying
He's in his
older.
30s now.
He's in his 30s. I mean, my sisters, you know, when we were younger, we never really had much contact. And now I think my sister, I think she's in the mid to late 40s.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different. You know,
Yeah.
you kind of look out for each other and you kind of have that there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book, because you sent me this. I wanted you to be on the podcast to talk about martial arts. I never knew you wrote a new book.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted to talk about that. But this book transformed the way I see you, because I didn't know a lot of these things. Like I didn't know the story of your father being from Ghana. And when we first connected back, I talked to you about how I'd gone to Africa and it changed my life. And you mentioned you're going to Africa and you're searching. I think I was probably searching for something going to Africa. You know, I mean, I think we all are always searching for something, right? If we're not, we're dead, right? And I read your book in 4 sittings, which I've never done with any book before in my life. It was so compelling and like just, I don't know if everybody can see themselves in it, but your struggle where you don't really talk as much about searching for your dad early on, but you talk about this quest of being different. And I'll tell you the one time in my life that and this is going to sound really stupid, but the one time I felt truly comfortable in my skin and being who I am was when I was in Africa. And it's a weird statement, being a white guy, right? But I don't see color. Like so many people say, oh, you know, I have a friend, he's black. I never got that stupid thing of like this quote of how many gay friends do you have, how many black friends, how many transgender, because I think we're all one. And the one time I noticed that I felt so embraced and loved was when I landed in Kenya, when I breathed that African air. And your book is called These Are African Hands. Tell me where that came from, like that idea that you look at your hands and you're like, these are African hands.
Yeah. It was, I was 13 years old. I was playing soccer down in front of my apartment with another boy who knew our family, and he says to me, your father's from Africa. And I said, what are you talking about? And I got kind of angry because I'm like, I was wondering how he knew, and I didn't know about myself, and I was really upset. And I said, what do you mean he's from Africa? I said, who is he? He says, I don't know, I just know he's from Africa. So I kind of like, at the same time I was angry with him, I kind of was excited because something fresh and new about myself that I didn't realize. So I didn't tell my parents about what he'd said, but for about a week or two, I just sit there fantasizing that I'm African. Wow, I'm bigger than just this place that,
right.
This small town that I'm trying to get out of now. So I kept looking at my hands secretly when we're having dinner or I'm in the living room. I look at my hand and I just say, wow, these are African hands. Because I look at my knuckles and I look at the color of my hand and I think, wow, this is amazing.
And being a fighter,
yeah,
like that's your hands.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so powerful that it all comes through there. So when you first went to, you'd never been to Africa before, any fighting, vacation, nothing?
No.
So you went to Africa on the initial quest to find your father.
Yeah.
And what year was that?
That was 98. No, wait a second. Hang on. 98.
Okay.
98, yeah.
1998. And you went from Los Angeles
Yeah.
to London
To London.
to Ghana,
To Ghana, yeah.
right? And just, I've talked about this 100 times when people have asked me, and I've talked about it a million times anyway. Talk about the plane touching down and the first, and I don't think people get this who haven't been to Africa, that first breath that you take.
Oh man, it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's you step out. I remember stepping out of the airport to get the taxi, the cab, and it was dawn. The sun was literally rising, right? And I step out with my family and I look out there, and this hustle and bustle of the airport and the air and the sky and the sun. It just looks different.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to explain. You just feel this energy around you. And then we drove into town and just experiencing the people and the lifestyle. But one of the things I really remember most of all is at night we'd have dinner and we'd sit outside and looking up at the sky and just seeing the stars and just looking at the heavens from where you're standing in Africa. You just have to do that once in your life.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I said, no matter what you do, if you stop with all the nonsense vacations, stop with Hawaii, stop with the Grand Canyon, stop with going to Disneyland, stop with all the nonsense and save all those vacations together and take one trip to Africa, right? Just do that one time. Just go and just, I said this and people made fun of me for saying it, but I said, I believe we're all from Africa. We already know all life started in the Rift Valley. That's already been proven. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Asian or whatever you are, your people at some point moved out of that center place where all life started. And that's that connection. I think that if you can get that connection, if you can get there mentally and physically, then you look past all this nonsense. This black, white, gay, straight, whatever, man, woman. I mean, we are one. I cut you open, I cut me open. My heart can go in you, your liver can go in me. And it's this nonsense. Do you find that and you visited other countries after you went to Uganda as well, right? Yeah. Do you see that love, that there are people always happy, they're always smiling, they're living the most abject of conditions, but they're smiling, they're living life in the moment, like Americans or Europeans don't. And we've both lived in Europe, and I just think these people are kind of stuck, right?
Well, that's one of the biggest things I saw when I was in Uganda, because knowing the history of Uganda, as other African nations, but Uganda has a horrendous history with Idi Amin, and how many people died through that regime, and how the country has a massive trauma after that. So you think about how you can go through that, which was only a few decades ago, and they just go on with life as if everything's fine and beautiful and smiling, all the things you said, despite what they went through.
Rwanda. Look at what Rwanda went through. Rwanda had the genocide, and that was under Clinton's administration. That's even closer in, right? And that was my friend who took me around to the gorilla trekking and everything. He said, well, before we go anywhere, we're going to go to the genocide museum. So we went from the airport to the genocide museum, and I had $35,000 worth of camera gear. And I said, would you mind if we just carry that around? He said, it's totally safe here. And I said, no, we got to take it, And he said, no, it's totally safe. And we're going to leave in the car. And I said, no. And so I insisted. So this poor guy, Jerry, who's probably watching the podcast because we've maintained our friendship, was carrying my bag. Jerry, yep. Was carrying my bag and around, and he said to me later, in Rwanda we have no crime. You could be walking down the middle of the street in the middle of the night carrying money, gold, whatever. You will be safe. And this thing of coming together. It's coming together. And you see people there. There's a pregnant mom with a baby on her back sweeping the street. And I think it's this ethic. And I think whether you're African or European or American or something, a good work ethic is, I think it's at your core, right?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to, the martial arts, back to work, back to, you as an amazing artist, like a painter. I mean, your stuff, painting is just, I hope we can just put a couple pieces up in this podcast to show it. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's amazing that you said you discovered your painting in like the 90s?
2002, 3.
And where did you find them? Because I was a photographer as a kid, so I always had this in me to go to Africa and shoot these pictures. But how did you discover that?
I think I always had it,
Mm-hmm.
And I was expressing it in my fighting, I mean, all art is an expression. So I was doing it when I was fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and then I changed. I remember when I had my last fight, I just told myself in the dressing room, this is going to be my last fight. I decided right now. So I left. I just knew I wanted to leave everything on the mat, like give it my all and leave my heart there to the sport that I loved. And then I said, it's not an end, it's a beginning. So I thought I'm going to take that energy of the warrior into the next phase. This is when I moved to America. And I was searching to be an actor, which I loved, and I'm still an actor.
You've been in several films, right?
Yeah.
And your guru, Milton Gonzalez, who you wrote about, who I knew back in the day, was one of the most amazing acting teachers in the world.
Yeah.
And you were able to actually train directly with Milton Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Which is
13 years.
13 years.
Yeah. He was amazing. He was a guru.
Yeah.
He made such an influence on a lot of people. But when I look back, he was a guru. Tough guy, but I loved his approach, because he was like the boxing coaches and the martial arts coaches that I knew so well. And I'm going to the acting class expecting something totally different, but then I feel like at home, because he's like talking like as if we're in a getting ready to go into a fight, and I like this guy.
Did you find a similarity from martial arts to art to acting to your searches for in life? I mean, isn't it all a journey?
They all connect.
They all do.
Oh yeah, they were all connected, and it took me a while to understand that. But when you do understand that each one of them informs the other one, and it's hard to explain, but it's all an expression of yourself. Mm-hmm. So I mean, as we've talked about in the book, in the martial arts, I'm doing Eastern boxing, and I'm doing Western boxing and doing Eastern martial arts at the same time, which is really crazy and tough. But I couldn't do one without the other. I'm just drawn to do it, and I feel like that's the same way with the other things. I can't just act. I've got to paint as well, because when I'm painting, I can figure out what the character in the acting is going to do, or the storytelling, or even writing this book. Over the years, when I've been acting, I've been thinking about the characters and what's driving them, and then I see the mirror and how that compares to my life, and I learn something about myself. And then I put that in the book years ago, and I'm writing about, and so it all kind of like bleeds into one into the other. It's interesting.
The story, the way the book, it does kind of evolve. It kind of just really pulls you along and pulls you into this thing, because you write it between chapters of boxing and then chapters of searching for your father and going back to Newcastle, right, and then being back in LA. All these different things. It just keeps you engaged through it. Do you think, it's funny, you and I are so similar with some of these things. Yeah. Do you think it's possible? And it's kind of a trick question, because I have an answer to it, but there's a excuse for it. Is it possible to do these things at once? Like if you were going to be an actor, a painter, and a fighter, could you do all those three at once?
I'm trying to. I get tired sometimes, but I'm trying to.
Right.
I've tried not to, but I keep going back to it. It's crazy.
Does one draw you more than the other? Like, does one really make you more fulfilled?
I don't know. Obviously used to be martial arts, but that's in martial arts is in everything I do.
But you're doing martial arts now.
Yeah.
I really believe, even when I'm training dogs, when I'm doing whatever, when I'm shooting pictures in Africa, like that's Budo, right? That's like, I think that Budo is in you. That's why I believe in this whole thing of like aliens. I just think there's these things. Somebody had this really interesting saying. He sent it to this the guy Scott who converted to Islam. His name is Ibrahim. He and I reconnected. He and I did martial arts in Florida in the heat. 15, 16 years old, 17 years old. We would be in the summer after, when there was no school, we would be fighting full contact with our Sentry red plastic gloves on and our feet. And then we finally got the Bruce Lee gloves, and we would just be fighting with just shorts on. And he and I reconnected. And he sent me this thing, and this guy was talking how we can only see certain waves of light, right? But then we can hear other waves of light. But there are these other waveforms in between that we can't see and we can't hear, but doesn't mean they don't exist, right? This rabbi told me this story. He said, he goes, we know what we know and we know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know.
That's right.
And there's such depth in that one piece, right? That these things, I think, somehow get inside of some of us. Maybe it's an infusion, maybe it's something God puts into us, or whatever you believe in. But I think once that Budo spark is in you, and there's been people who train martial arts for 10 years who never have it, and there's people who walk on the mat the first day and it's there, right? And I think once it's there, it's in everything you do. I mean, it's almost not possible to do what we do without it.
That's right. I think that's because it's an expression of who we are. Whatever you're doing is, if it's coming through you, it's you, and whoever you are, it's going to show up in everything. Everything you do. So
when you're doing your painting, you're doing martial arts. When you're writing your book, you're doing martial arts. You're acting, you're doing martial arts. It's the one thing that separates you from everybody else, because of the way you kind of pull it through, right? The way you harness it. I mean, do you ever think, because I haven't seen you in 10 years, you still look exactly the same. You're one of the few people. I went for my high school reunion. There was one kid, Kenny Kirchmerrick, and I looked at him and I was like, dude, you look exactly like you looked in high school. And you're that. You look exactly like you looked back in the day. I got the picture, I'm going to put it up, that I showed you when we were in the magazine together.
Great.
But you still look, what do you work out? Do you eat healthy? Is it your mind? What is it?
Healthy. I eat healthy. But I think your mind's important as well.
Yeah. Do you think you're old? Like, do you look at yourself and go, man, I'm 50-something years old now?
No, I don't. I kind of, I think aging is a social disease, because people, I don't always tell people my age, because I don't want to be in a place where people say, when you're at that age, you're supposed to be doing this, this, and this. But who made that rule? We can live much longer and we can look great. And if you live a great lifestyle, if you live a healthy lifestyle, there's no reason. We're designed to live for a long time. So I tell myself, I put myself on that schedule. There's a few books which I really read as well, which are really good. Which is, I'm blanking on right now, but we'll come back to that if it comes out.
Like, what was the main thing that influenced you to, because I can trace it back, that influenced you to change, to evolve, and to become the person that you're today early on? Like, what was those little, because for me, for sure was Bruce Lee.
And
you wrote about Bruce Lee, because you went to see Enter the Dragon 100 times, right?
Come on. Bruce, that's our guy.
Right? Is there anybody better than Bruce Lee? I mean,
Bruce got us going.
I mean, just was the guy that got you going.
Bruce was a prophet. Bruce was like, he's one of those guys that come into the world to change it, help to change it. And through that, he brought us Taoism.
For sure.
Can you imagine if someone said to you, without, let's suppose Bruce Lee's not in the world, and someone came up to you and said, be like water, and you go, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
But when Bruce Lee says it, that's cool.
It's totally cool, right? The Tao of Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
many times did we read that book?
Yeah, big time.
So he influenced you big time.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Before Kung Fu, before you did your classes?
well, I'd seen his movie a couple of times before, End of the Dragon.
Yeah,
And I think I was one of millions of kids who saw that and wanted to sign up.
yeah,
And I did,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I was in England, and you had to be 18 years old to see his movie, because it was what they call X-rated, which is PG now.
Oh, wow, really?
So you had to be 18, so I was only like 12. So I was climbing up the back of in the cinema. I'd climb up through the toilet window.
Yeah.
And then go see that movie about like 13, 14, 15 times,
Yeah.
you know, and hiding and once you're in, it doesn't matter, you're in.
Right.
You know.
You got the stamp.
I got the stamp, that's it.
That was it already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was, I mean, we'd never seen anything like him, had we? Because he was
Never.
like, the way he looks and the whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah. I mean, he was insane. Like I said, the kid, Scott, who now his name's Ibrahim, he literally looked like that.
Yeah.
In my high school, like he was the kid who, insane. I mean, he had that strength. He could go up to a street sign and pull himself completely parallel. He'd do the thumb push-ups. He could do this.
Man.
He was like his body looked like. I just put it on the other night when after I was reading that chapter in your book when you talked about Enter the Dragon. I searched it. And I said, Jan, we've got to watch this show. Women hate that movie, right?
Ah, yeah.
They just hate that movie. And we were watching. I looked and I was like, that's
So
exactly what Scott looked like back in the day. Like that was insane, and that his movements were like insane. He was like literally like just he would float, and it was so fast. Like the speed was incredible.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. Bruce, yeah, he was definitely here to change, to be a game changer for us.
And the age, right? Like he was 30. What was he?
32,
33 when he got killed. He died. Whatever. I'm not going to go into conspiracy thing now, but like I think it's something really amazing when you look at somebody at such a young age to be able to change. And I think some of the people who have done some of the greatest changes in the world have been, I mean, Jesus Christ or Bruce Lee. Or I'm not putting it all in one book, but
Malcolm X, Martin Luther King,
right? Dr. King. I mean, and Malcolm X. I mean, the autobiography of Malcolm X, one of the most amazing books I've ever read by Alex Haley, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that's when you have this amazing power and this gift from God, and I think it transcends all religion and everything. I mean, in my opinion, God is at the bottom of the funnel. You can pour anything you want in, it's God's going to come out.
That's right.
Right? And like this ability to change the world. And I mean, we all have that ability, right? And to do it at such a young age, because God, when I was 30, I mean, I was teaching martial arts and I was doing stuff. You were, world champion by then, weren't you?
Yeah.
How old were you when you
I was world champion 22 years old.
22, you were the world champion.
Yeah.
And how long did you fight after that? When did you fight? Because you said your last fight, you left it all on the mat. What year was that?
I think it was 92.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your decision when you went? Like, did you think ahead? I'm going to do one more fight. I'm going to train.
No, I didn't. I was literally in the locker room getting changed for the fight, and then I made the decision right then.
What fight was it?
It was a fight with Sewell. It was a guy, Tony Sewell. I fought 3 times, and we had some epic battles, and it was a great match. And I must say that I heard a whisper in my ear, just make this your last fight, like that. And it just felt right. And I went, okay, I'm gonna do it. And it impelled me to go out there, and it's interesting because I've heard whispers in my head all the time, and I put that I'm trying to put that in my book, where my brain is talking to me and having the conversations. But I think some of them are those whispers that I hear are divinely imbued by some higher power. guiding me, as we are all guided.
Yeah, you got to believe in that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a vapid existence if we think it's just us.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
It's like people who don't believe it. They just think, God, it's just. I mean, I'm not here to preach. I could care less what your belief is, but
Yeah, totally.
But I just think, God, if that's it, if this is it, if this life is it, well, really, it's just such a waste of time, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
It's just crazy to think about that some people do, and I think that's where depression and sadness and all this really stems from, is these people who just have this mono existence theory.
Yeah.
It's like, this is it, okay, when we die here, that's it. And I think they don't choose to accomplish things, they don't choose to do anything further than what they're doing, right?
That's right, yeah.
And you didn't write in your book at all about your art, your painting, or anything like that.
I just
Why?
I briefly talk about it in some of the conversations at Higher Ground. So it comes through a little bit there, but it's mostly about the philosophies of art and the people who do art. So hopefully I got enough of it through through those conversations.
But you don't go into the details of your shows and your paintings and all those things, right?
No, yeah, didn't go into the details of that there. It was all, I kind of tried to funnel whatever information was needed for those, and I didn't want to go outside of, I mean, I could have talked a little bit about them, but I just didn't want to go outside of the parallels of what the story I was trying to tell.
I think it's amazing. It's such an amazing story. Now, when does the book hit the stores or Amazon or Barnes &
August 28th.
Oh, August?
No, sorry, no, March 28th.
March
28th.
I thought you said March. Yeah, okay, March 28th.
Yeah, that's my son's birthday. That's why.
On March 28th? Or
August 28th.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how me saying that all day. August 28th.
Yeah,
it's March 28th. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they'll be available on Amazon or at theseafricanhands.com.
Okay, theseafricanhands.com is where they can get it. Are you doing signed copies?
Yeah,
okay.
Signed copies. If you go to theseafricanhands.com, you'll get a signed copy. And sorry?
You got to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's just an amazing book. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about Africa, about martial arts, about all this stuff. This is just a conversation getting us back together. I mean, I hope you'll come back again.
So much. I mean, I think that, hearing you talk about the book is the main thing. And any writer wants to hear that you got a lot out of it that you couldn't put down.
I think I texted you 3 times while I was reading it. It's seriously an amazing book. I mean, I'm not saying it because you're my friend and I love you, but I'm saying it because it's a life-changing book. I think anybody can get something out of it where it just makes you connect to this inner piece of you. It makes you connect to, who you are and who you struggle to be and who you battle to be and all that stuff, because that's something that we're always trying to get in touch with our inner selves, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I think you tapped into that in this book.
Yeah, thank you. It took a lot of work.
20 years you said you were working on this book?
Since '98 when I got back from Africa, and what happened was my grandmother died, and I didn't find my father. I don't want to give the story away.
No, don't.
Let's not give the story away.
But the fact with your grandma passing away, and I didn't get it because when you said, could you call her mom?
Yeah.
Right? Let me get a question. And this is, I don't even know why I'm saying this. In the book, the statement is always our Kevin.
Yeah.
Right? And it was repeated so many times.
Yeah.
Is that a regional thing?
Yeah. It's a colloquial, enduring type of thing we say to each other. So we'd say family members, our Robert, meaning like you're one of us. And that I wanted to make sure I had it in there because that's the irony of the story. Who do I belong to?
Yeah.
So that's why I kept that in there.
I just loved it. It was so because at first I read it and I was like, our Kevin. Why does he keep saying our Kevin? And then I realized that it just to me became such an endearing term to see it, to see these people say it over and over, and your mom and Sonia, who is your mom, actually saying it. It was just so powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. And are you still in touch with Sonia, your mom?
Well, we haven't spoken for a little while.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah. that's tough. I mean, life is just so.
Life is life.
And I know how you are with your daughter because I met your daughter when I had my dojo, and you brought her by, and you were like the most amazing father, and you glow when you talk about her. You feel now, because I'm looking at you, you got this glow on you about her. I mean, it's such a great journey you've had. And we're about the same age. I mean,
that's right.
Not closing age, because I don't believe in either. But you have no lines on your skin.
Well, I've got a lot of vanity. I asked my girlfriend, what can I use? What can I use? Give me some creams.
Oh, so you do that, right? So you ask for these things?
I said to my girlfriend, come on, you got any creams? Give me some. Give me some knowledge. Give me some wisdom.
Right women are so wise.
They're so smart.
Janet always says, I run in the other room, I shave, and that's it, I'm done. But I'm going to do what you're doing. I'm going to ask Janet for some secret creams, like eye creams, right?
Yes, come on.
I'm not worried about losing my hair. I got to rock your look.
Yeah, just shave it. Don't worry about it.
Oh, man. But you've always had your hair like shaved, since I've known you.
Yeah, since I've known you. I shaved it when I first moved to LA. And actually, it was my time in Africa. It was so hot. And I shaved my head for the first time.
You did it yourself just while you were there because it was so hot?
Because it was so hot. I was in Uganda. And then I thought, hey, let's do it again.
Yeah, Uganda is just an amazing country. I mean, man, I was there 2018, and it was epic. I went gorilla trekking. You saw the pictures on my site.
Yeah. Oh, your photographs are amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's again martial arts. You know. I got stuck going through to the impenetrable forest, and they said, I was in Rwanda the year before, and they said, if you want to do something, you should go to the habituation experience. And we're there, and I said, okay. And so they said, we're hiking.
Yeah.
We met, and we go hiking up the trail, and I was like, hiking. And about an hour and a half later, almost 2 hours into it, and they said, okay, we're here. And I said, where are the gorillas? And I said, oh, no, we're at the beginning of the forest. These guys are insane. And I got lucky because I paid the dues and nobody else came. There's supposed to be 2 other people with us, so it's just me and 6 guides. Yeah. Right, trekkers, guides, and guys with machine guns. And Uganda is a pretty safe place to be, relatively. It's not like DRC or something.
Right.
And I every ounce of strength I had, I pulled within me for that strength to get through this, getting up there to see these gorillas and this experience. And I mean, I think everybody should go to Africa. I mean, I hate to say it. If I could do it, I'd do it tomorrow.
Did you have any fear when you were up there?
Okay, so I'll tell you a story, right? So I'm up there, and I see these gorillas. Now, here's the thing. The habituation experience is not quite what you think, right? So when you go to Rwanda, you go on a trekking. And you get with a group, and you go up, and you see the gorillas, and the gorillas see you, and you see the gorillas, and the gorillas are totally used to you being there, right? Now, when you do the habituation experience, you think, well, okay, we're going to go and we're going to have an experience with habituated gorillas. That's not what it is. You're actually helping them become habituated. So what they do, the first year or so, they get in their presence, and the gorillas see them, and the gorillas run away. And then they come up again, and they see them, and they run away. And after about a year or so, the gorillas start to get less and less afraid of the people. Then they start bringing people in with them, right? And they come closer and closer and closer, but the gorillas are not as habituated as they are in a regular gorilla trekking. So you're sitting there in Rwanda, and the gorilla will come up to you and grab your arm or do whatever, or the silverback will brush up against you or something like that. Well, in Uganda, during the experience, we're sitting there, and this one gorilla's looking. I've got a video. I'm going to show it to you if I can find it. And the gorilla's looking at me, and I've got my camera, and I said, "Are we okay?" And he goes, "This is very friendly. You could just hear him talking to me like this, and it's great. He's fine. He thinks we're his friend."
So when he looks like that, is he mad? He's just trying to, he wants to know us.
Yeah.